Welcome back to the Norman Nick Show. Got my man Lamont with me. Some deep information that we're talking about here as far as always going to trial first and speaking about how to fire an attorney and what to expect. I mean, this was some interesting topics that we got going on here today.
Me and Norm hooked up through another friend, Winning Strategies.
You're looking at my face right now, you know. Okay? You should tell somebody else. They can't take their child away from you. Okay? Unjustly.
Eric Smith, I always say the group of people or friends that I've met on the various social media sites. We've been trauma bonding, through our ordeals. We've come together. I would assume God put us in this place for a reason. I have been an unfortunate victim to have been dragged into family law court, unwillingly, like Norm, it was something that I decided I was going to fight back. I decided to, avail myself of all the tools that are on the internet, educating myself on how to obtain custody of my children. And I found out that this is a problem that is not only in America, but this is a problem that's going on all around the Western English-speaking world, at least. And it's something that I've decided to dedicate my life to help people obtain their children. Unfortunately, it's a situation where that doesn't need to be. The powers that be have found a way to monetize the very lives of people. So, I've made a commitment in my life to help people, predominantly men, regain custody of their children. I had mentioned to Norm that I'm going the route of obtaining a legal degree, becoming an attorney myself. So I'm in the process of doing that. And I also, act and give information as a divorce consultant to people who, I come in contact with. So, that's what I'm about. That's my story. And, I'm just trying to help men be, part of their children's lives.
That's all you could ask, just do your part and, give when you can. As far as some of the stuff I'm going to touch on, first thing I'm going to touch on is something that we were talking about the other day as far as like worst experiences with attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
You want to give us your worst experience that you had in family court dealing in your divorce and being pro se, dealing with I'm assuming your wife's attorney.
I had just, I have a nuanced position about family law attorneys. I think I'll bottom line it as a male litigant or a father litigant in family law. You have to know the law for yourself. I'm of the opinion that you do. I would recommend or suggest that you have an attorney rather than not have one. But you have to have the knowledge to be able to direct your attorney, right? You are ultimately the boss. What you say goes. They're there to facilitate your wishes and demands. There was never a scenario in my case where, even when I looked at all my pleadings, 85 to 90% of the things that were in my pleadings, there are things that I told my attorney. So you have to be the boss and in control in the steering wheel at all times. I had 8 attorneys. Some were better than others. There's only one that I would actually recommend. But, in regards to just having an attorney or, Norman mentioned my worst story. I don't really have like a worst story. I think just the general, bleeding of a case, what they call putting you on the family law treadmill and just letting this stuff go on forever. That was my problem, right? You have to, if I knew then what I know now, I always like to go back in Monday morning quarterback and second guess what happened. If I knew then what I know now in California, or at least in Riverside County, they have something called a case management order. And what that does, actually, I was just going over this with a client yesterday, and because I was telling him that he needs to request one. One of the first lines of the case management order is that your matter is supposed to be over in 180 days. And looking back at it now, I think that as a father going through a divorce proceeding, the first thing you want to do is set a trial date. Okay, just the first thing that comes out of your mouth with the attorney is, Your Honor, I want the next open trial date. Okay, so that puts you're on the clock now. Okay, so once you get to, you want to hurry up and get to your, the end of it, the actual trial. And with my situation, I would have always been nodding and nudging rather my attorney to adhere to the 180-day case management order, because what happened was, and interesting enough, the opposing counsel in my case was the one who suggested the case management order. And you can always tell the judge, Judge, we're getting kind of off, we're getting off the track. We're not going to be able to meet the case management orders requested for this to be over in 180 days with all this constant leveling of allegations of domestic violence, child abuse. So the case management order is something that you can use to, manage your finances, manage the amount of money that you're spending, and just make the court adhere to its own order. So that, with me, I in all honesty, I don't think I had a quote unquote terrible attorney. It's just, I'll fire attorney in a minute. One thing you can't tell me as my attorney, you can't tell me I'm not going to do that. Okay, that's the next thing you'll get from me is a substitution of attorney request. You ain't gonna tell me I didn't give you a $4,000, $5,000 retainer. You're not gonna tell me what you're not gonna do. That ain't happening. So just you got to have the wherewithal to put up your attorney's butt when you need to, and never forget that you are the boss, because these attorneys will drag this case out forever. I heard a story of a man that was only married for 6 months, but this is a story that was on the Divorce Court, the documentary. I think it was a woman, actually. She talked about she was only married for about 6 or 9 months, but her divorce was 4 years.
I believe it. I believe it.
Always surround yourself with like-minded people that are moving in the same positive direction that you're trying to get to, and you will reach your goals faster than you expect. This is the lesson of sacrifice. The thing that you put off because you know that somebody else won't do it. It's not a loss because it's something you gained either in the present through labor or in the future through an investment, whether it be money, saving yourself from heartache by walking away from a toxic relationship, the sacrifice of practice that you do day after day after day after day to perfect a skill in some niche that you individually want to do outside of what everybody else thinks. The work that you put in that nobody sees, the integrity, that's the sacrifice. In order to become a master, there are so many things you're going to have to sacrifice along the way. But as a Nyx, or even as a Jedi, or as a good person, you never sacrifice yourself. Because if you sacrifice yourself without the expectation of martyrdom, there's nobody else to teach the next generation. Not everybody can be a martyr. Not everybody can be the hero. But you could be the one that inspires a hero. You can be the one that plants the seed for the next generation so they can become the next judges, the next presidents, the next senators.
Now, as far as there's two things that you touched on that I'm very, very highly um, in sync with you on. And number one was always go to trial first, because that you're absolutely right. That puts, as soon as you walk in the door, that puts an end date on the bullshit. Because the first thing that happened with me with my case, when I did pro se and how I just did my stuff, is when I saw counseling, the first thing they asked me is, did you file for a trial, or are you guys still going through mediation? And I was like, there's no mediation. There's nothing to reconcile. There's nothing, there's nothing to agree upon. She's in contempt of court every which way. You know what I mean? Every which way, upside down. So there's no reason to go to mediation. So I asked the judge off top of their attorney, go right to trial. So he was like, he said the exact same thing. He said, that's good, because that doesn't give her any time to sabotage and do wiggle room and all that stuff. Lo and behold, she did try to do it anyway. She ended up firing her attorney because her attorney told her what she couldn't do as far as her trolling and her, her toxic. And so she let him go, or he actually let her go and tried to make it look all cool on paper. But his paralegal hit me up and was like, yo, he dropped her. So I knew right then what was good. And then when I said that in court, she didn't deny it. So yeah. I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, setting the trial date, like we said, that it'll put a timer on it, put an end date, and it puts the judge on notice that in any time any foolishness is attempted, we're getting off course, Your Honor. You can always bring that up, because I mean, my matter was 5 attempts at restraining orders, 3 CPS reports, and not even a word of reprimand. The judge did not even verbally chastise my wife for any of that.
Part 3, Preparing Legal Documents. Lesson 1, Introduction to Legal Forms and Documents. Imagine that child custody is like a game, and the rules are written on special papers called legal forms. In this lesson, we will learn about these legal forms, why they are essential.
All right, and we are back. Welcome to the Norman Nick Show. I am Norman. With me today is my guy, Lamont. Lamont, how you doing, my guy?
Just hanging. What's going on, fam?
You already know, man. I've been trying to get you on the podcast for a minute so we can have our delightful discussions that we always have when nobody else can hear us. But there's so much wisdom is passed on with what we have to talk about between Arizona and California, where you're at. Just for the new viewers and everybody catching up, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you contribute as far as father's rights education?
Right. I mean, I will say this, because I started as it was going on. I mean, me and you knew each other by about the halfway point with mine. You start picking up little tricks, and anybody that it's not that complicated. Anybody that has half a brain, you can get in and kind of see things that you can do to sabotage the case on your behalf too. So it's called non-stip, and I didn't know this actually walking into my case. Non-stipulation. What you can do, right? Because in California, family law is so busy, right? So what they do is they will, I'll say, contract out the duties of a judge to what is called a commissioner, depending on the your location in the country. And commissioners are not actual judges. Judges are elected. This is an elected position. Commissioners are attorneys that have been given the ability to hear certain matters, family law being one of them. And what, as a non-stipulation, what that allows you to do is to say that, no, I'm going to request that a actual judge hears my matter. And that's exactly what I did, because my thing went on so long that my commissioner actually had rotated out of family law. That's what they do with these commissioners. You go from civil court, criminal court, family law court, you just rotate around the courts, getting training, if you will, because I guess commissioners are still people that are trying to become judges. So a commissioner is actually, this is an apprenticeship program, if you will, for judges.
Right.
But I non-stepped and got an actual judge. There's some benefits to actually having a commissioner too. I mean, you can kind of play the game that way too, because I found out maybe about a month into it that anything that a commissioner does, right, every time you leave court, you can have the commissioner's ruling reviewed by the presiding judge, right? And
so with that being said, I'm gonna show you this too, because you hit it right on the nail of what's going on with my court case. So after my ex fired her attorney, for her toxic shit, because he told her stop messing around. She fired him and then filed a bogus restraining order in a different court on the other side of town. I live on the west side. We live on the west side of Phoenix. She filed on the east side of Phoenix, thinking I was going to have time to go down there with the kids and everything. So I made time, went down there, contested it, and the commissioner, just like you said, who was not my family court judge, wanted to test my knowledge as a paralegal versus his knowledge as acting, like you said, a bench judge. You know what I mean? A warm up, a bench warm. So when Commissioner Duty got off the bench and was told to come up, his staff actually argued with him. So long story short, what happened was I filed an appeal, and I got the notification today, or not today, but I got it the other day in the mail, and I had to blur out some of this information, but you can see here, it's public records now. So even though I did blur out my ex's name and everything else, but it went through. And like you said, you can contest when a commissioner who is not part of your family court case is making a ruling. You can't contest it. So long story short, when I went and filed this, the clerk of the courts had never seen this document before, as far as an appeal. They had never seen the document before, because it always skips them, because an attorney goes right to case filing straight to through e-file. So they don't go through the clerk of the court. So when I went in as a civilian to the clerk of the court and filed it, they had to call their supervisors. They didn't know if they should charge me. They didn't know how many copies, if copies were needed for anything. So they basically had to get educated while I was standing there. I had to tell them how to do their job. And I'm just a paralegal. I'm not even a paralegal in their, as far as their staffing, as far as court, court paper pushing. You know what I mean?
Well, Norm, real quick, I'm glad you brought that up. I think that, dads, we should get, there's a lot of, because once you learn kind of what's going on and you see the games that are played, I think that dads could really sabotage. I'll use the tactics that the Vietnamese used during the Vietnam War, the North Vietnamese, what they call it, what do they call that? When you're facing a superior adversary.
Guerrilla warfare
tactics that we could use in.
That's exactly what we do.
And one of them could be the utilizing the no-step or the non-step. In that, the reason why they do this, right? Have a commissioner act as a judge, because they have so much work, right?
The calendar is overloaded.
Yeah, if everybody demanded a judge, right? Something you can do. If everybody demanded a judge, we could it grind the shit to a halt. Right?
And because they're relying on your ignorance of not knowing your due process.
Yeah, exactly.
And as far as criminal court, they do the same thing too with the whole speedy trial bullshit. If I knew I was innocent, there is no way I do a speedy trial, because I need my attorney to go look for people to know where I was, my alibis. There is no way I'm doing a speedy trial. Speedy trial is something that criminals want to do, because they're like, look, you ain't got no evidence. I want to hurry you the fuck out.
Yeah.
At least in my notion, you know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? So that if you don't know your rights, you know what I mean? You're like, oh no, I know I'm innocent. I want to hurry and get this shit done.
Mhm.
You may be cutting your foot off, you know, because you don't know what they have in the bag on you, or,
True
you know, circumstantial.
True that, because walking into any Riverside County, that's where I'm at in Southern California, any Riverside County courtroom, there's a sign on the wall. I wish I had it to show everybody. There's a sign on the wall, and it's simply stating that you just the fact that you're appearing in court today, you're actually relinquishing a lot of rights. And a lot of people don't know that just, a lot of things happen in court, and rights are assumed or granted or denied just on the appearance of things, right?
Or acknowledgement. You don't even have to have the evidence. You can just acknowledge you sent something or an email or said something, and they'll hold it as you testified to it.
Yeah, to your point, I believe that's some of the phraseology that's on this placard. Like, your appearance is an acknowledgement of something, right? You're saying that what you're essentially saying that the reason why you're there is valid.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of, maybe that's, part of our program that we need to, Father's Rights, Guerrilla Boot Camp, Guerrilla War strategies. Maybe that's something we should look into. A lot of the ways you can stall, delay, make sure that you're not giving up your rights. These with free men on the land, they got that stuff down.
Well, it's actually a form of civil protest if you think about it. If we figure out a way that we can educate these fathers and some mothers too, to go in there and say, look, I'm tired of being dicked around. This is where it stops. I want a trial now, or something to that effect. Or make it so they can't deal with a commissioner. You know what I mean? And we show them how to funnel and package their court case, so that way they can do it even without an attorney, or even if they have an attorney, they know that option is available, even though the attorney, like you said, is putting them through that treadmill because they want that money. So they can do that shit right away and say, look, this is the deadline. This is what the goal is. And we can teach them how to be assertive.
Well, yeah, that's part of it. A lot of guys, you get intimidated. I mean, it is intimidating. You start thinking about, I'm going to lose my kids if something goes wrong. But everybody should walk in there and essentially, because my brother told me the same thing. He was going through it, and he went through pro as well, and he would just go to court every court date they have, and put it to the judge just like this. I'm a fit and proper parent. You don't have a criminal conviction of child abuse. I've been part of my kids' life, their whole life. That's not going to change, and that should be your position, and just make the court say prove otherwise, or me being here is a giant waste of time. I'm taking off time from work. This is to my extreme disbenefit. I'm not being compensated for the time missed from work. My time is worth money, and I'm losing money coming here. So I would just advise dads to take a hard line like that. You're probably not going to find an attorney that's going to do what I just said. If you do, keep that one. But to me, with the exception of a filing if a restraining order is on the table, I would recommend going and getting an attorney, because it's not time to screw around. But in anything else, you can go in there and represent yourself.
Correct. Now, as far as I'm going to put you on the spotlight here for a minute, because I got to turn off this AC. It's driving me crazy, and I want to make sure it doesn't kick in while you're talking. But as far as firing an attorney, now I get a lot of questions in the comments, and as far as like TikTok, when I start talking about, especially my ex's attorney and stuff, and they're like, well, how do I fire an attorney? So can you break down in California how somebody who is deciding they want to be pro se is done with their attorney, and what the process would be to fire their attorney?
I mean, there's really not much to it. You just like you would fire anybody in any other scenario. If you were a business owner, you just simply notify your attorney. You probably want to do it via email, so you have some sort of paper trail. But just tell them that you want to. Just tell them you're fired. They'll start mentioning the word substitution of attorney. Now, I don't full disclosure, I don't know the actual form. I believe there is a form that you need, but that would be a short Google search. But problems that people run into when they're getting rid of attorneys. This never happened to me. I had an attorney try to fake the funk for a little bit. A lot of people, when you get an attorney, you give them all your paper files, right? And a lot of people don't know that those files are actually your physical property. So a lot of times you fire an attorney, they'll try to hold on to that, your personal property, stall you and delay you. I have a buddy whose attorney never gave him his files back, but gave him a thumb drive with all his files on it. And I told him that's crock shit. I mean, I had an attorney that tried to, they never said they weren't going to give them to me, but they tried to, stall and delay and slow walk it. I called the police. Because in all honesty, those files are your physical property, right? Somebody has your property, they're refusing to give them to you or give them to you. There's a word for that, and it rhymes with stealing. Okay, so as soon as the police showed up, I got my property. So if anybody out there, if attorneys ever playing games with your personal files, that is your personal property. Just in the same way that your jacket is your personal property, that person is in possession of my property. Officer, go get it.
Now, let me ask you this. As far as once you fire an attorney, let me go back a little bit. So is there a couple of ways then that you can get rid of an attorney? Like you could say it in court in front of the judge, like I want him fired, and the judge would have to acknowledge it in open court, and they would have to file it saying that he was, let go.
I'm pretty sure that would be enough, but I don't even think it needs to even go that far. I mean, it's just like any business relationship. If you hired a contractor to paint your house, all you have to do is express the fact that you're terminating the relationship that you have, i.e. you're firing.
But as far as like the money aspect of it, like if the attorney, let's say the attorney wanted to gouge you for fees, would you leave it up to him to file it within 2-3 days or whatever? I don't know what the census is, but let's say, you tell him you're fired, you don't want to work with him. Is it his responsibility to then file the necessary paperwork to make it official in court so that cutoff date is done as far as billing? Or is that up to you as now pro se, technically, because the minute you say he's fired, that should be the date that the minute he's not being paid. So would that be your responsibility to go
I mean, it would be ultimately your responsibility. Once again, in California, there is family law is form heavy. There's a form for every damn thing. So there is a substitution of attorney form that you're going to need. That's probably why you hire a paralegal. I mean, you could use a paralegal services. Because in my opinion, let me know if you think this is true too, Lord. Like nurses, and I think I told you this before, like nurses in a hospital, right? Nurses will typically know more about what's going on in that office than the doctor. And paralegals and attorneys are essentially the same way. Paralegals, I always use this as a kind of like as a backup plan anyway. I had a paralegal that I used on the side that none of my attorneys knew of. It kind of helped me with filing stuff, with forms that I needed. I would ask them questions. So, even if you do get an attorney, I would say spend the extra money to have pay a paralegal on the side to take care of stuff for you. Like, finding out what form you need. There's a forum that I use too. I can't think of the name of it, but it's a message board, and they had the sections of the message board separated by states, so you can get on certain forums and ask other dads who are going through it what form you may need. Riverside in California, they're pretty good about making people aware of the forms that they need. Every county will have a self-help center, and if you just went down there and said, simply, "Hey, man, I need a substitution of attorney form," they'll point you in the right direction. But with that, that's something else that attorneys use to manipulate people, because they know that you're unaware, and just that wonderment that you have in your mind, the guessing that you have in your mind about how this is going to get accomplished, they'll use that against you, because they'll know that issue will never get resolved. So this is one of the main things that dads need to come to terms with is the fact that you have to grab the steering wheels of your case with both hands. There's nothing that you should know. Okay, there's nothing. There's no form. There's no if you don't know the information, you at least have to hook up with a group of people. There's groups on Facebook. There's groups online, message boards, other forums. Hook up with a group of men that have been through this and that can at least point you in the right direction.
Well said. Well, with that being said, Lamont, man, take a pause for the cause for a commercial break.
Yo, this is my guy Eric Smith with Winning Strategies, and you guys already know I would not be representing anybody who did not affiliate with Father's Rights. Call my man at 443-768-8158. And if you need to email him because of correspondence you need him to look at, it's winningstrategies.fcc@gmail.com. This is Dads for the Win. It's your boy Norm. See you in another video.
But as far as us coming back, welcome back to the Norman Nick Show. Got my man Lamont with me. Some deep information that we're talking about here as far as always going to trial first and speaking about how to fire an attorney and what to expect. I mean, this was some interesting topics that we got going on here today. As far as time-wise, I am in the middle of a project that I do have to get back to. Are you going to have time later on today to talk? Or
Yeah, I got to start getting ready for work.
Yeah, no worries. Well, let me tap in with you later, man. I love these little tap-ins that we do. I say we do this all the time when we need to talk instead of talking on the phone. I say we just tap in and do these because we can get mad knowledge out because we say shit like this.
If you don't make time, you'll never have time. So that's just
that's why I keep pressing you. I'm like, I don't care if you on the toilet.
That's right.
All right, my guy. I'll tap in with you later. Thanks for tapping. Thanks for checking in. Peace.
All true. All true.